A tech founder exits his company for $400 million. Within 18 months, he owns a polo team. Not a football team. The economics make no sense. Not a basketball team. Too much media scrutiny. A polo team. In Argentina. With 12 horses, a professional patron-player arrangement, and a handicap he is still learning to pronounce. This is not one story. This is a pattern. And if you want to understand where wealth is moving in 2026, Polo is the canary in the coal mine. Let us start with a number that makes no sense at first glance. The global polo industry generates roughly $1.5 billion in annual revenue. To put that in perspective, that is less than what the National Basketball Association generates in 2 weeks. And yet, in the last 3 years, more technology founders have entered polo than in the previous 30 combined. The question is not whether polo is profitable as an industry. The question is what these people are actually buying. And the answer has nothing to do with return on investment. The old model of polo patronage was simple, and it lasted for centuries. A wealthy individual, an industrialist, an oil baron, a shipping magnate, fell in love with the sport. He bought horses. He hired professional players. He hosted matches on his estate. The team was a personal indulgence, a social credential, and in many cases, a genuine passion. John Paul Getty played polo. Walt Disney's nephew founded the Disney polo team. The Duke of Edinburgh played until he was 50. These were not investors. These were patrons. And patronage meant something different than ownership. The economics of traditional polo patronage made no business sense whatsoever. A single high-gold polo horse costs between $50,000 and $200,000. A patron needs a string of at minimum 6 horses per match, 8 to 10 for high-gold tournaments. Then you need grooms. Transport. Those horses fly business class, literally in specialized equine air freight. Veterinarians, entry fees for tournaments. The annual cost of fielding a competitive high-gold team runs between $2 and $5 million. And in return, you get 0 ticket revenue, 0 broadcast rights, and 0 merchandise sales. Traditional polo is not a business. It is a controlled financial loss dressed in white trousers. The first reason is the most obvious and the least interesting. Polo is the hardest status signal to fake. In Silicon Valley, anyone can lease a Tesla. Anyone can wear a Patagonia vest to a board meeting. The signals that used to differentiate have become accessible to upper-middle-class professionals. But polo? You cannot fake polo. You cannot rent a polo team for a weekend and post about it on Instagram without the polo community immediately identifying you as an outsider. The equipment is too specific. The horses are too visible. The handicap system, your official rating from -2 to 10 goals, is public and verifiable. In a world of performative wealth, polo is one of the last status authentication systems that still functions. The second reason is more interesting. Silicon Valley has a narrative problem. The dominant cultural story about tech wealth in 2026 is not admiration, it is suspicion. AI is replacing jobs. Algorithms are radicalizing populations. Social media is fragmenting democracy. The founders who became billionaires from these technologies are carrying wealth that feels, to the broader public, illegitimately obtained. Polo offers something that no public relations firm can manufacture: cultural legitimacy. When a tech founder becomes a polo patron, they are not just buying a sport, they are buying a 1,000-year lineage. They are attaching themselves to a tradition that predates Silicon Valley by 24 centuries. It is the ultimate reputational hedge. The third reason is the one nobody says out loud. Polo is a network, not the metaphorical kind, a literal functioning network of the globally wealthy that has been operating continuously for over a century. When you own a polo team, you do not just attend matches. You attend the asados in Argentina after the game. You are invited to the private dinners at Guards Polo Club during the season. You spend weekends at estates where the guest list includes industrialists from Mumbai, financiers from London, and landowners from Dubai. In Silicon Valley, networking means a 20-minute coffee at a co-working space. In Polo, networking means 3 days on someone's estancia with no phone signal. The quality of information exchanged in those two settings is not comparable. The old guard of polo has not exactly rolled out the red carpet. Traditional polo patrons, the ones whose families have been in the sport for 4 generations, view the tech influx with something between amusement and quiet hostility. The tension is not about money. Old polo families have money. The tension is about time. A 4th-generation Argentine polo family measures their involvement in decades, in the careers of horses they bred, the development of players they trained from childhood, the slow accumulation of knowledge about bloodlines and turf conditions and mallet weights. A tech founder measures time in quarters, in sprint cycles, in the velocity from seed round to Series A. When these two temporalities collide on a polo field, they do not understand each other at all. The most visible friction point is the patron-player model. In traditional polo, the patron hires professional players, and the patron also plays, usually at a lower handicap, often as the weakest link on their own team. This is accepted. This is the social contract. The patron subsidizes the entire operation and in return gets to participate. Tech founders struggle with this. They are accustomed to being the smartest person in the room. In polo, for the first 3 to 5 years, they are unambiguously the worst. A 45-year-old founder who learned to ride 2 years ago, playing alongside a 28-year-old Argentine who has been on horseback since age 3. That is a very specific kind of ego reckoning. Some adapt, some do not. The history of outsiders entering polo is actually instructive. In the 1920s, American industrialists, the Whitneys, the Hitchcocks, the Guests, entered a sport that had been dominated by British aristocracy and Argentine ranchers. The old guard sneered. 20 years later, American teams were winning the US Open, and the British were inviting them to Cowdray Park. In the 1970s, Middle Eastern oil wealth entered polo. Same pattern. First mockery, then grudging acceptance, then integration. The tech wave of the 2020s is following exactly the same trajectory. The names are different. The dynamics are identical. The real question is not whether Silicon Valley will be absorbed into polo. The question is what polo will look like on the other side of that absorption. Here is where the story gets genuinely interesting. Several tech patrons are not just buying teams. They are applying venture capital logic to the sport itself. They are investing in equine genetic startups that use machine learning to predict a foal's athletic potential from DNA analysis. They are backing sports tech platforms that stream polo matches globally, something the sport has resisted for decades. They are rethinking the economics. Can polo be packaged as a media product? Can the season be structured as content? These questions are blasphemy to traditionalists and potentially existential for the sport. Polo is the last major equestrian discipline with no meaningful media rights revenue. That either makes it a massive untapped opportunity, or it means the market has already spoken. The tech patrons are betting on the former. Strip away the horses, the mallets, the Argentine estancias, and what you find is a deeper story about wealth in 2026. The great wealth creation event of the last 20 years was technology. The great wealth anxiety of the last 5 years is what that wealth actually means. Tech money is fast, liquid, digital, and culturally weightless. You can be worth $800 million and still be nobody, culturally speaking. Polo is the opposite. It is slow, illiquid, physical, and culturally dense. Every horse, every trophy, every photograph from the 1930s hanging in the clubhouse adds another layer of weight. The tech founders buying into Polo are, consciously or not, trying to acquire that weight. They are converting digital gold into something heavier. This pattern extends far beyond Polo. The same dynamic is visible in the tech-driven revival of mechanical watch collecting. Patek Philippe, waiting lists stretching to 8 years, secondary market prices that make venture returns look modest. In the explosion of interest in classical architecture among newly wealthy founders. In the quiet purchase of English country estates by Silicon Valley money. What connects all of these is the search for depth, for things that cannot be created in a sprint cycle, for traditions that have survived not because they are efficient, but because they are meaningful. Polo, in this reading, is not a sport that tech is disrupting. Polo is the thing tech founders are fleeing toward. Some numbers to anchor this. The average net worth of a high-goal Polo patron in 2025 exceeds $200 million. 15 years ago, that figure was closer to 80 million. The entry price of serious patronage has more than doubled in real terms. Meanwhile, the number of billionaires on the Forbes list has tripled since 2010, from roughly 1,000 to over 3,000. Polo's demographic pool has expanded dramatically, and the sport is absorbing the overflow. The math is simple. More billionaires, more patrons. The cultural math is more complicated. Argentina sits at the center of this story, and always has. The country produces roughly 70% of the world's 10 gold players, the highest handicap in the sport. If you want to field a competitive team, you need Argentine professionals. This creates a fascinating cultural bridge. A tech founder from San Francisco, educated at Stanford, whose entire professional life has been conducted in English and Python, suddenly finds himself spending weeks in the Argentine pampas, negotiating horse prices in Spanish, eating asado with families whose relationship with Polo predates the founding of the United States. That experience changes people, not because of the Polo, because the pampas operate on a completely different logic than Silicon Valley. And some founders realize, perhaps for the first time, that their logic is not the only one. Here is what Polo reveals about the current moment in wealth history. First, status is migrating from what you can buy to what you can belong to. A Tesla is a purchase. A Polo handicap is membership in something. The difference is not subtle, and the wealthy understand it deeply. Second, as AI automates more of cognitive labor, the premium on physical skill, on things bodies can do that algorithms cannot, will increase. Polo, riding, and other embodied sports will become more prestigious, not less, in an AI-saturated economy. Third, cultural legitimacy is becoming the scarcest resource. You can make another $1 billion. You cannot manufacture 3 generations of history. That scarcity, as any founder should recognize, drives value. The tech founders who succeed in Polo are not the ones who write the biggest checks. They are the ones who understand that Polo is not something you acquire. It is something you submit to. You submit to the rules of the Hurlingham Polo Association, drafted in 1875 and revised with glacial care. You submit to the judgment of Argentine professionals who have forgotten more about horses than you will ever know. You submit to a pace of life that has nothing to do with agile methodology. The ones who fight this, who try to disrupt polo, who demand faster seasons and streaming deals and data-driven training, they either learn patience or they leave. Polo has been absorbing outsiders for 25 centuries. It has outlasted every empire that played it. It will outlast the current wave too. In the end, the tech founders buying polo teams are not wrong. They are buying something real, something that will still exist when the current AI hype cycle has passed, when the next market correction has come, when the startup they founded has been acquired and forgotten. They are buying a seat at a table that has been set for 2,500 years. Whether they get to keep that seat depends on whether they understand what they are actually buying. And that, as the old guard would say, is entirely up to them.